Hey there! Today we're sewing the Mighty Heartbreaker Tote by K.Azcona Designs. I've chosen to sew the medium size for this tutorial, and I'm doing the applique on the front panel. And I have already put my interfacing on here. I have Sofuse Plus and Decoville Light in here. After I put the interfacing on the solid colored vinyl, I taped down the printed vinyl and I put the foam interfacing behind that. I put the foam after I taped down the printed vinyl just so that when I do the top stitching, the foam piece is secured. This will be my back panel and this is my lining. I will be using this gray zipper with this thestral zipper pull for the inside pocket. This will be the slip pocket binding. This is the fabric that I'll be using for the slip pocket. These are the pieces I'll be using for the zipper pocket. This is my gusset piece, and because it also has foam interfacing on it and my foam has decided to not cooperate and not stick to my vinyl, I decided to do some designs on top so that it will secure the foam. Because I'm not great at drawing, I've decided to grab some tissue paper and pencil, and I've traced out the design that I want so that I can stitch over it and then break the tissue paper off. And this is the lining piece for the gusset. Let's get to it. I'm gonna get started with the top stitching for my heart. And one thing that I'm gonna do is that I'm going to leave long tails for my thread so that I can pull the top thread to the back and I won't have to do the back stitching on top of my heart. Now, before I reach this starting point, I'm going to pull that thread to the back. And when my needle reaches this point, I'm going to do my best and I'm going to put the needle through that beginning hole. I'm going to hand crank and pull up my presser foot and make sure that it goes in through that same hole. It's done that. Now I'm going to pull this finishing thread. I'm going to pull it to the back as well. And what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to knot these so that they're secured. What I usually do is that I do 3 knots on each thread. Then I cut off a bit of the excess. My top stitching is done, and also I have secured the foam onto the bag panel. Now that I've done my top stitching, I can set this aside. Now I'm going to tackle the gusset. So I'm going to go to the machine and I'm going to top stitch all these 4 designs onto my gusset. I'm deciding to use some washi tape to tape these down so they don't move from where I want to sew them. Now that they're taped in place, I'm going to sew on top of these lines just to create the designs onto the gusset. And just like I did with the top stitching with the heart, I'm going to leave long tails so that I can bring that thread to the back and not have to backstitch on the top. So I've done this one, and I just want to take it off to see how it looks. So as you can see, the technique did work. I just need to go in with some tweezers and like grab these little pieces of paper, but I just wanted to make sure that it worked out well. And it does. So I'm going to continue on and sew all the other designs, and then we'll see how it comes out. I wanted to point out that another option for the foam stabilizer is to actually cut it the same size as the outer piece and then you just baste it on the outside edges of it. But because I didn't think of that before, I decided to do my designs, and I think they turned out pretty well. And they are gonna hold my foam in place. The next step is to actually add a bag tag if you have one, or if you have a handmade tag or something like that. In the pattern, she has a measurement on where to place your bag tag, so I'm gonna go ahead and put this on. I've installed my bag tag, and I've also added some duct tape behind here so that I can protect the cotton woven that will be in the lining. So now we can put this to the side. Now it's time to work with the zipper pockets. So grab one of the zipper pocket pieces and put it wrong side up. I've already interfaced my piece. In the pattern, she gives you a red dashed line that shows you the size and spacing that you need for your zipper pocket. But one of the first things that we want to do is find the center of the pocket. And you can mark it with a notch, but what I'm going to do is that I'm going to just press it, and that'll create a line for me to follow it. And I'm going to use my zipper ruler from Mormino, and I'm going to place it here and have it in the center, and I'm going to mark that. I only mark the top and bottom lines because I never sew on the sides, and I'll show you why. But now it's time to grab one of your lining pieces and put it right side up. And with the measurements that are given in the pattern, you're going to place the pocket on here. I'm going to measure it and put it where it needs to go. Now that my pocket piece is placed, I'm going to go to the sewing machine and stitch on these lines. Now that I've stitched my zipper pockets in place, I'm going to create a line right in between these two lines I just stitched. It's going to go right in the middle, in between them. And I'm going to create a little triangle that comes from the edges. I eyeballed this and it's not super pretty, but it's going to work anyway. So as you can see, I did not stitch on these shorter edges. Now that I've drawn my line on my pocket, I'm going to cut on this line. And to do that, I'm going to fold my piece in half. I'm going to grab my scissors. I'm going to cut right at this line. And now that I've created that hole, I'm going to continue cutting this way. And once I reach this point of that triangle, I'm going to cut up that triangle without cutting onto the threads that I just did. Just go as close as possible without cutting the threads. I'm going to repeat that for the other side. And as you can see, it is now open. And with that hole, I'm going to grab my zipper pocket and I'm going to push it through. Now when you look at your lining piece, you should see that hole for the zipper, and when you flip it, you should see the right side of your zipper pocket. I'm going to my ironing board and I'm going to steam this down just so it's easier to work with. Now that this is ironed down, it will lay way nicer. In the pattern, she has another way of doing this part, but this is just how I handle my zipper pockets. So now it is time to grab your zipper and grab some double-sided tape. And we're going to put tape on the top edge of the zipper and on the bottom edge as well. My zipper now has that tape on there, and now it is time to place it on our lining panel. So make sure that the rounded part of your zipper is going to the left so that it can close to the left and open to the right, unless you want it reversed. If you want it reversed, then the other way. But because I want my zipper to close to the left, I'm going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and take off the paper from the tape. And you can do this one side at a time, but I just prefer doing it at the same time. And what we're going to do is that we're going to place our zipper and we're going to align it onto our zipper panel. I like to align the short edges first, making sure that the zipper is in the middle, and I'll do the same thing for the other side. On this case, my zipper is a little bit out of the way, so I have to bring it back. And I'm actually going to pull my zipper through because it's a little bit bigger. And now I'm going to play around with it until it's where I want it to be. Now that my zipper is taped onto the zipper panel, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to top stitch all around my zipper to secure it in place. And I'm going to do the same technique of leaving the long thread so that I can pull it to the back once I'm done. I have top stitched my zipper in place. And now it is time to grab the other part of your zipper pocket and put it right side down, matching with the one that you already attached. You can use some clips to keep it in place. Now I'm going to go to the machine and I'm going to stitch this closed. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to put it right side up and I'm going to fold these pieces in and sew, and then pivot and sew again, pivot again, sew back down, and pivot one more time, and then sew it all the way down until it's fully closed. When you're sewing over the zipper, make sure to backstitch just so it's a little bit more secure. I've sewn the zipper pocket closed, and now I'm going to cut off the excess of any zipper tape that might be sticking out. Now that I've cut off the excess, it should look something like this. So when you open it, you can see that the zipper pocket is closed. I added a little tag on here just because I thought it was cute. But now our zipper pocket is finished. So now let's move on to the slip pocket. Grab your slip pocket piece and place it right side up, and then match up the bottom short edge with the top short edge and pin in place. Now we're going to go to the machine and we're going to sew the left side and the right side. Do not sew the top. We need this open for the next step. Now that the edges are sewn, we're going to carefully clip the corners so that when we flip it, it flips out nicely. Now that we've clipped our corners, we're going to flip it right side out. Now that it's flipped right side out, I'm going to go to my ironing board and I'm going to steam it down. Now that I've steamed my piece down, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to baste 1/8 of an inch from this edge, just so this edge isn't open. Now that I've basted my slip pocket on the top, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab my slip pocket binding. I'm going to do this a little bit different than what it is on the pattern, just because I prefer this look over the one that's on the pattern. The way it's mentioned in the pattern is to just put your slip pocket piece on top of your slip pocket binding, centered, and then grab this top piece and fold it down. I don't prefer the look of my vinyl being raw like this. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to grab some tape and put it right in the middle of my slip pocket binding. Now that it's taped down, I'm going to take off the paper from the tape. And I'm going to bring in these raw edges off to the middle. And I'm leaving half of the tape exposed so that I can tape down the other edge. Now that it's taped down, I'm going to grab my slip pocket and I'm going to center it. And I'm going to fold this vinyl piece down and I'm going to clip it in place. Now I'm going to go to the sewing machine and I'm going to top stitch this piece on 1/8 of an inch from this edge in. And now that my top stitching is done, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut the excess from the vinyl. Now that this is done, it's time to grab our other lining panel. In the instructions, she mentions the measurements that need to be taken to place your slip pocket. So refer to those for the placement, but what we're going to do is that we're going to take the front part of your slip pocket and we're going to place it down with that measurement that she mentioned. Now that our pocket is placed, we're going to top stitch on the edges and also on the bottom side. So we're going to go from one edge through the bottom and then the other edge. Make sure to backstitch very well at the top edges. I have top stitched my slip pocket in place, and just for a little bit of extra security, I'm going to add 2 rivets on each edge. When I add the rivets, I'm going to add a small piece of scrap vinyl or Decoville light or something like that, just to give a little bit of more stability to that rivet. I've added my rivets onto my slip pocket, and here they are with the little scrap pieces. This step is optional. This is just a little something that I like to add to slip pockets just so it looks a little bit nicer, and it also gives it a little bit more stability onto that pocket. Now it's time to work on our outer panels. In the pattern, there are certain markings that you have to transfer on to your main panels, and I'm talking about the front and the back panel. And right now, we are going to install the webbing for our straps. In the pattern, she lets you know how long these straps need to be. And in the pattern, there's also the markings for the strap placements. So what we're going to do is that we're going to place the straps on those markings. I'm using 1.5 inch webbing for this one. There should be some webbing going over our pattern piece just because webbing tends to fray. So in order to prevent that as much as possible, we have to put it up a little bit more. My webbing is overlapping for 1.5 inches. Once the webbing is in place, I'm going to pin it. When you're pinning your webbing in place, make sure that the U that it forms is not twisted. And we're going to do the same thing for the other main panel. Now that my straps are clipped in place, I'm going to go to the machine and I'm going to baste them onto my panels. My straps have been basted in place, and now it's time to grab the outer gusset. So grab your exterior gusset and find the centers of your gusset. So we're just going to fold it and have short edges meeting, and we're going to mark the center of the gusset. I'm just going to do some notches. I've marked the centers of my gusset. Grab one of your main panels and your gusset, and we're going to put them together right sides together. I'm going to start by putting the center with the center of my main panel and pinning it in place. After marking that center, the edges should come up. They should match with the markings that you have done on your main panel based on the pattern. So we're just going to match all of those markings and pin it all in place. Now that the gusset is clipped onto one of the main panel pieces, I'm going to go to the machine and I'm going to stitch it in place. Now that the gusset is attached to one of the main panels, we're going to repeat this same step with the other outer panel. So this time we're just going to put it right side down and we're going to pin all around just like we did with the other panel. I have finished sewing the main outer panels. They're all together, and now it is time to work on the lining. I'm going to start with the lining panel that has the zipper on it, and I've already marked my center. And just like we did with the main panels, I'm going to find those centers and clip them together. I've clipped it all together and I've left an opening on this edge just so we can turn our bag at the end through this side. One thing to note is that we're going to start with our regular seam allowance and then we're going to gradually go up a bit, and then we're going to keep that increased seam allowance until we reach the other side, in which we will go back to our regular seam allowance. Remember to leave this side opening. Now that the lining panels are stitched together, we are going to grab the remaining lining panel and we're going to clip it the same way that we did with the other one, except this time we're going to sew all the way around without leaving that opening. We are also going to repeat the gradual increase of the seam allowance. Now that it's all stitched together, I'm going to grab my pinking shears and I'm going to trim all the outer edges on both sides. Do not trim the pieces that have the opening on it. Now that I've clipped my edges, I'm going to turn the lining side right side out. And I'm going to grab my main panels. I'm going to put my lining inside of the main panel construction. I want the zipper to be in the back of the bag, so I'm going to put it towards the back. Make sure that your straps are out of the way and they are divided in there. Now that the lining is inside of the main panels, we're going to clip it all around the edges. I like to start in this seam for the edges right here. Clip that together. Sorry about that. And then I clip the other edge. I put them together and I'm going to clip them together. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to match the edges first. After I match these edges, I'm going to go all around and I'm going to pin all around the bag. Once the bag is all clipped, we're going to use our regular seam allowance to go all around the bag. Once you're done stitching all the edges, make sure to go over again on the straps. Just make one more stitch over each strap. Now that it's all stitched around, what we're going to do is that we're going to clip little notches on these curves. Be careful not to clip the stitches that you already sewn in. Now that I'm done clipping all the notches, I'm going to flip my bag right side out. So I'm going to take out the lining, and through this hole that I left in the lining, I'm going to flip the whole bag right side out. Now that the bag is flipped right side out, just make sure that you go in with your hand and poke out all the corners so that your bag is the right shape, or the shape that it should be. Do this all around your bag and in the lining as well. After you're done shaping your bag, we're going to close that hole in the lining. So kind of put your fingers in here and kind of pull on it just a little bit so that the raw edges flip towards the inside, and grab some clips and clip it closed. Now we're going to go to the machine and stitch this closed. This is a good spot for a cute little tag if you wanted to add one. I've stitched the opening closed, and now it's time to put our lining inside our bag. Now it's time to do the final top stitching all around the top edges of our bag. I've decided to flip my bag so that I can do the top stitching on my flatbed machine a little bit easier. I'm still going to go around my bag and secure the edges with clips because the lining keeps flipping to the outside. So I'm going to roll with my fingers, and I'm going to make sure that that lining stays behind that main panel, and I'm going to clip it just so it's easier for me to work with it. My edges are a little bit bulky, so I'm just going to press them as much as I can with my fingers. So I'm just gonna go around clipping the rest of the edges all around my bag. My bag looks a little wonky from the inside, but I have it all clipped up on the top edge. So I'm going to go ahead to my machine and I'm going to top stitch all around the edges. Go slow and make sure that your bobbin is full. Now that I finished the top stitching on my bag, I'm going to flip it right side out again. And your heart tote is finished. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope I helped you create your own heart tote. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. Thank you so much for sewing with me today. I'll see you in the next one.